the Americans are committed to having troops in Gaza. And the reports now is that there will be 200 Americans within the month. And the Turkish media is also reporting that there's a good chance there'll be Turkish troops with them in this, and it's a part of the deal. It's called the International Stabilization Force, the ISF, and they're going to be the new security to replace the IDF there. So we actually have got American troops. And just as a side point, like Trump being America first, his America first base are going to be mortified that now the idea of American troops in Gaza.
So two options. One, it's exactly what it claims to be, and somehow the international community will find the backbone to do what it takes to push back Hamas and really create a proper rebuilding process in Gaza that also de-radicalizes Gaza's schools, that also pushes ahead on development, on peace. Gaza is small, and it's stuck between the most powerful state in the region and the single most populous Arab state. I think Egypt's population is something like 120 million people. Gaza has no future if it needs to go to war with one of its two neighbors, either one. Incidentally, it supported Morsi in the Egyptian civil war back in 2013. When the army won that civil war, Egypt cut Gaza off from that last open border. If Hamas decides that it's at war with both of its neighbors, both of whom are in their way the biggest or most powerful country in the region, Gaza has no possible future. Right. And so if it does push back on Hamas, great. Here's the problem. That has never happened in the history of international forces. Okay, you have to go back to the Korean War. And even then, the Korean War was technically a UN police action, but it wasn't actually a UN police action. It was a United States military action. Okay, the Bosnian conflict went on for 4 years. Nobody noticed. And then NATO suddenly bombed Belgrade for 2 weeks, and the entire conflict is over. Now, that wasn't NATO. That was Bill Clinton. Okay, in fact, it was American power. In sort of the official kind of wrapping of it, they pretended like it was some kind of international force. Either somebody tries to explain to me that this international force is going to go in and fight Hamas, which I simply don't believe. The America First crowd won't let him. But even if the America First crowd he ignores them, and he wants this win. He wants a Gaza that's a beautiful Riviera in 5 years, and he understands Hamas has to go, and this is the cost. I don't think he'll succeed. He's not willing to do what it takes to succeed, which is lose soldiers. This is a bitter guerrilla war against an enemy that's willing to watch Gaza burn to the ground because its ultimate vision of victory is a religious one rather than a geopolitical or nationalist one. And so what will end up happening is what happened with UNIFIL in Lebanon, or with the best case scenario is what happened with the forces in the Sinai after 67, which was that after 56 and after 67, UN forces come into the Sinai. As soon as the Egyptians mobilize into the Sinai to attack Israel, the first thing the UN forces do is run away. Abba Eban, the great Israeli foreign minister, once said that the UN is an umbrella that stops working in the rain. It's perfect. The UN is amazing right up until you need it, and then it no longer exists. And in UNIFIL's case in Lebanon, it was much, much worse than non-existent. UNIFIL was an international force that Hezbollah felt no need to protect, and Israel knew it could not possibly bomb. And so Hezbollah ended up building tunnel shafts and infrastructures and rocket launchers adjacent to every UNIFIL installation in South Lebanon. UNIFIL became the protection to Hezbollah and knew it. And there are hundreds of videos on the internet, look them up, where a UNIFIL patrol in South Lebanon, ostensibly there after the 2006 war to dismantle Hezbollah, to disarm Hezbollah, that's in the UN Security Council decision. And it's there in South Lebanon, and it encounters a Hezbollah checkpoint because there's a Hezbollah installation and they don't want UNIFIL to get to it. And the Hezbollah guys won't leave the road. And the UNIFIL commander, some cute little like Irish guy or Norwegian guy, like some totally naive, innocent idiot in this region, steps out of he's not allowed to shoot. He's not allowed to actually engage. He steps out of the car. He says, please let us pass. They say no. He says, come on. They say no. Sometimes they even punch him or push him. He goes back in the car. He drives away. That installation is never examined by UNIFIL, and UNIFIL becomes the basically human shield of Hezbollah. And so if the international forces are coming into Gaza to build a new Gaza against the demands and desires of Hamas and its religious ideology. Fantastic. This would be a whole new vision for, the Arab world would have to be behind it. It would have to be more than just Hamas allies Turkey. It would have to actually be Egyptians and Saudis and people who don't want a Hamas future for Gaza. I suspect it's going to be the opposite of that. I suspect it's going to be UNIFIL. Their actual function, especially if it's Turkish soldiers, is going to be to be the people in Gaza the Israelis won't dare hit, and to stand alongside Hamas while Hamas retakes Gaza, rebuilds tunnels. Gaza is very easy to dig tunnels under because it's on a kind of limestone that is very soft.
Yes.
And so Hamas is now going to begin to rearm and refortify the entirety of Gaza.
Yes.
And the Turks are going to be their human shields willingly and eagerly because they support them.
Yes. I suspect
is that what the Americans are walking into?
It's worse than UNIFIL then. And it's unthinkable that Turkey would turn on their Muslim brothers, particularly as they support them. And worse still, because with Iran now massively degraded, it could be that Turkey try and fill that vacuum, to fill that void. So at least with UNIFIL, you didn't have that problem quite exactly.
Right. It was incompetence and cowardice and the fact that the UN didn't actually back them or know what it was doing.
Yes.
That turned them into human shields for Hezbollah. Turkish forces in Gaza that would be their mission.
So given all of this, it goes back to your original point. Is the only leverage now on Hamas is from the, let's say, the Israel allies or is on Turkey and Qatar. The only leverage is whether the Americans can say to Qatar or Turkey, no, you haven't held up your side of the deal, or Hamas, you've got to do something about it, and if not, we will, whatever.
Yeah, but in ways that matter to them. In other words, it can't be a polite diplomatic request. It has to be deeply costly to Qatar and Turkey, which I don't see the political desire to do that. Now, I want to be very clear here. Israel's allies, could deeply want Hamas gone from Gaza and do whatever they can do with Qatar, Turkey, with Egypt, with Saudi, with everybody to try and build out a system in Gaza that somehow replaces Hamas with something else. But it's the people who actually want Gaza happy and prosperous in the future going forward who need to do this, who need to deny Hamas the narrative that they're good for Gaza. There's nothing anybody can do for Gaza. We now have massacres running in the streets of Gaza by Hamas. And they will rule Gaza. And what will they do with the Gaza they rule? They're going to develop the natural gas? What are they going to do? They're going to take 20 years in which everybody breathes and rebuilds and Gaza becomes a beautiful little emirate on the Mediterranean? And then maybe continue their religious war? They're going to take a generation to raise them to be happy and prosperous and strong? Or are they just going to do another war in 5 years and bend all of Gaza's economy to that next war because they think they've won this one by simple virtue of the fact of surviving?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a friend of Gaza, not if you're a friend of Israel, don't wish that onto Gaza. Hamas will only ever destroy. It literally for 40 years has done nothing else. It bombed every peace process. Hamas's charter for 1988 has an article in it that declares all of Palestine Muslim waqf. That's a Muslim trust, land given in perpetuity to Islam as a religious holding. And Hamas says publicly, explicitly, they have a new charter in 2017 that never canceled the old charter and is essentially a public relations exercise, which even people like Haviv Marshall, leaders of Hamas, have said is just a PR exercise and we're not bound to it. For example, the first charter talks about destroying all the Jews. The second charter says we only mean Zionists, which is adorable. But Haviv Marshall says, yes, but obviously we still mean, we never canceled the old one. Hamas's original founding charter and its deepest idea is that all of Palestine is a religious trust and the Jews cannot be allowed to remain in it. All peace, all division of the land, all compromise of any kind is evil. Hamas has bombed more peace processes than it ever fought against any occupation. Mm-hmm. And that's something to understand about Hamas. Hamas will only lead Gaza into another war. That's true if Israel is good and struggling to do well in a terrible way. It's true if Israel is absolutely evil monsters. That if you hate Israel, fine, go for it, enjoy it. Hamas will still destroy Gaza.
Yes.
And it will still never do anything other than destroy Gaza. It literally can't and never has, not in 40 years of its existence. And so I don't need friends of Israel to go to the Qataris and ask them to pressure Hamas. The world that wants a better future for Gaza and for Palestinians generally. When Hamas is gone from Gaza, one of the reasons Israel, left-wing Israelis, left-wing progressive Israelis, who grew up in the 90s defining themselves as pro-Palestinians, that was the Palestinian state, the end of military rule over another people, was their literally political and social identity. Those people don't want to pull out of any part of the West Bank because everywhere we pull out of, whether it's South Lebanon in 2000 or Gaza in 2005, Hamas takes over, and Hamas currently wins every poll in the West Bank. If Hamas is irremovable from Gaza, you will literally have to fight the Israelis war after war after war to push them out of anywhere else. And so if Gaza can't be redeemed, little Gaza, and the world literally can't handle it, and all the allies of Hamas in the Middle East are more powerful, it transpires, than all the people who want Hamas gone, like the Saudis and Emiratis and Egyptians, then you have made the case to the Israeli public, to the Israeli left, never mind the right, for clinging to the West Bank with every fiber of their being, because it will only ever go the way of Gaza. So, no, I don't ask allies of Israel to try to get Hamas out of Gaza. I ask every enemy of Israel, who isn't actually Hamas, who wants a better future for Palestinians, and not a grand Islamist redemption story basically built on the blood of Jews. I want all of them, all the people who marched and claimed not to be anti-Semites and not to be Islamist terrorists. I want all of them to come to Gaza and say, get the hell out of there, Hamas, so we can actually rebuild this place into what it should always have been.
Yes.
If you were the governor of Gaza, okay, and they discovered natural gas off the coast, would you have clung to the forever war, or would you have calmed things down and built out that natural gas reserve?
Thanks for watching this clip from The Winston Marshall Show. You can click here to watch the full episode, and for more clips like this one, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, be well.